Simon Sinek, Mel Robbins, James Clear, Brené Brown, four of the biggest names in thought leadership on the planet over the past decade or two. They all have something in common. And it's going to sound like an insult, but it's not. Not one of them invented the idea that made them famous. Every concept that these thought leaders are known for existed before they came on to the scene. So how did they become stars? Well, it's because in thought leadership, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. I realize that sounds like I'm discounting their ideas and saying that they owe their success to being good marketers and to other people's ideas. That's not what I'm saying here. Finding the words that make an idea pop is work. There's talent in framing ideas in ways that make them sticky in people's minds. An idea that nobody's going to remember, repeat, or act on might as well not exist. So these four thought leaders didn't borrow ideas. They framed them in ways that made them appealing to the masses. And there's a lesson there for attorneys and other professional services providers who are trying to become thought leaders and want to be seen as authorities in the areas of law they practice, the industries they serve, or the work that they do. Let's start with Simon Sinek. The idea that people are moved by purpose, by why you do something, not just what you do. That's decades of motivational psychology. Daniel Pink wrote a bestseller, Drive, around that idea. Before him, two psychologists, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, spent their careers on it. They called it self-determination theory. Simon Sinek didn't discover any of that. He didn't ghostwrite Daniel Pink's book, but what he did was give this idea and concept a shape. He drew three circles, called it the golden circle, and then uttered an unforgettable sentence. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. He took something that was true, but a little fuzzy, and he gave it a tangible framing that took off like wildfire. How about Mel Robbins? The insight behind her whole empire is that you have to move before your brain talks you out of it. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it behavioral activation. The principle that action comes first and motivation follows, not the other way around. That's been a staple of cognitive behavioral therapy for decades. But nobody's going to buy books that say behavioral activation on it. No one's going to sign up for a course that says best practices for behavioral activation. So Mel Robbins turned it around. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. She took an abstract principle and made it into a ritual that anybody could adopt and make a part of their everyday life. And then she did it again with let them. 2 words that describe a piece of ancient Stoic philosophy about not trying to control other people. 2 words. How about James Clear? James Clear is standing on a mountain of existing habit research, which is something he admits if you listen to him talk on podcasts. Charles Duhigg helped come up with a habit loop, a cue, a routine, a reward. In the book, The Power of Habit, B.J. Fogg, a Stanford researcher, built a whole model around tiny habits. I'm sure James Clear read all of that. But what he did to transform these concepts into his own is to add the packaging. Atomic habits. Get 1% better every day. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. These are all memorable framings and packagings of concepts. He took a messy field that had been long established and packaged it so cleanly, his book basically became the Bible for habits. The research wasn't new, but how he packaged the research has made him millions. And finally, Brené Brown. She's an actual researcher. Shame and vulnerability are her real academic pursuits. She built her work on grounded theory, a method developed by 2 sociologists, Barney Glaser and Anselm Strauss. But plenty of people study shame and vulnerability. What Brown did was flip it. She took vulnerability, something that people treat as a weakness, and she reframed it as courage. Look at what Simon Sinek, Brené Brown, James Clear, and Mel Robbins did. Every one of them took an old idea and did some mix of 4 things. They gave it a name they owned, like the Golden Circle or Atomic Habits. They compressed it into a line you could repeat without thinking. They attached it to something concrete, a number, a shape, an action you could take today, and almost always they added a little twist, a flip that surprised us and made their idea even more memorable, such as start with why or vulnerability is strength. They laid out a recipe, and arguably the recipe, for packaging and framing ideas. You name an idea, you shrink it down, you make it physical, and you give it a little bit of a twist. Now, I'm not going to pretend that their framing and packaging of their ideas was the only reason why those ideas were so successful. They got lucky with timing. The platforms helped as well. TED, podcasts, Instagram, all showed up at the right time for them. And all 4 have been distributing their work relentlessly for years. But their phrasing and packaging made their takes on well-known subject matter memorable and sticky in the minds of the audience. That's something the vast majority of attorneys ignore when they produce thought leadership, and that's something they should take away from seeing Simon Sinek, Mel Robbins, James Clear, Brené Brown, and others in action. I'd argue that thoughtful packaging can transform pedestrian ideas into memorable ones that can catapult the authority of an attorney or an other professional who's engaging in thought leadership and wants to be seen as an authority regarding the work that they do. When you're building your authority and ultimately your practice and your book of business through thought leadership, you need to come to the table with ideas. Without ideas and viewpoints and the occasional hot take, there can't be thought leadership. But never forget that how you frame your ideas, how you package your ideas, that's part of thought leadership too. Your ideas on your own might be relevant and valuable to your clients, but how you package them and frame them could make them and you memorable and change the trajectory of your career. As you map out your thought leadership journey, think about how not only do you communicate ideas in your head, but how can you package and frame them in ways that make them very sticky in the minds of your target audiences and help establish your presence and your authority in the field. If you'd like to learn more thought leadership best practices, check out lawfirmeditorialservice.com. We have more than 500 videos, blog posts, and podcast episodes that could help you do just that.